I'm Kira Clear, and I have Evan Ruth here with me, and we're going to talk about the bias that we find in sports media today, specifically online news sources such as ESPN, MLB.com, CNN. What else would you say you found biases in there that you follow regularly?
I generally use like generalized outlets like an NFL news app that they publish, so I'm not sure about the specific where a lot of the articles come from. A lot of them are written just by people covering the sports team.
But just things that are filtered through the ESPN, so they're fairly reputable because they're going on that big site.
Right, they're through verified sources.
So do you interact with these news sources on a daily basis?
Absolutely. At least once a day I'll check either baseball news, not so much because it's the off season, but especially basketball news, football news, at least once a day. About 9 times a week.
How do you typically check out these news sources?
Generally through my phone, either through the NFL Sports app or just through Google's filtered news feeds for basketball, through MLB.com's app. Every once in a while I'll look at them on my computer, but not very often.
So you actually go and seek out these news sources to try and find them?
Right.
So have you noticed a bias in any of these news sources, or?
I'd say that you can find a general bias in a lot of news articles. It's hard because they're about sports teams. Even more so in sports broadcasting, you'll find a lot more bias, but it's noticeable in the articles for sure.
Where does the bias typically lean towards? Is it more towards a team? Is it towards something else, like the fans, or how does the bias lean?
Depending on the writer, especially for baseball, a lot of writers have very specific opinions on certain players. There are players that you can tell that they like or don't like. There are stats they favor that may not tell the whole story. But with basketball, it's definitely been very noticeable with the Pistons this year. People are used to them being a bad team. They've been a bad team for the last few years. And so there's a definite bias when it comes to a lot of announcers. It's hard because I'm a Pistons fan, so I don't have an unbiased opinion.
Yeah.
But it's definitely easy to see. People are starting to come around to it, but it's definitely, people are expecting them to lose. It's like that with the Lions every year as well. The fans and different news writers, they always write things like, well, it'd be very like the Lions to lose this upcoming game. So
they definitely just show bias and expecting them to either lose, or does it happen for really good teams that like to win a lot, or like the Indians or Cubs?
You can see with the Golden State Warriors, not quite as much right now, but especially at the beginning of the season, there was very much a general, why are we even running the season? Just skip to the end, hand over the trophy. And you can see it in a lot of the way sports writers create their articles.
So would you say this is the norm for that niche of media, or this is unprofessional and they should be unbiased?
I'd say that, especially when you're covering specific teams, if you're on the beat for the Tigers or the Golden State Warriors, it's hard not to have that bias. I think most writers, most broadcasters do a very good job of keeping that out, or at least keeping it to a minimum. But I think there should be a general level of professionalism expected.
So, talking about sports media and just general media, how do you think the 24/7 news cycle has impacted both of these?
Very negatively. You can definitely see it in sports.
How so?
Some of the articles you'll see come out will just be useless. They're just useless information that's thrown out because people need to have the idea that they're being updated with cutting-edge information every minute. And so news sources will scramble to publish something that, like those reports that say this trade is definitely going to happen, and then it just turns out to be wrong. I'd say that the 24-hour news cycles negatively affected sports media.
Do you have a most useless article you've ever seen?
I'm not sure. Actually, there was an article published recently that was really trying to espouse the Thursday night football showdown that was going on. It was trying to really pump up support for it, get people to watch, and it was between the Cleveland Browns and the Giants, maybe, and they were two awful teams. Neither of them had wins, and this article was really trying to pump it up as like kind of a big showdown, and that was definitely wrong.
Yeah. So last thing, how do you feel that citizen journalism, such as people just like taking pictures at basketball games and blogs and things like that, or even just people like recording videos and them getting famous based on that, how do you think that has affected the world of sports?
Crazy, to a crazy amount. It's unbelievable how many articles, how many people have gotten their articles published through reputable sites purely because they ran their own blog. I definitely think it's had a huge impact on the world of sports.
Positive, negative?
It differs. There were some people who maybe didn't have the classical training and expertise to get accepted by a site and now run their own blogs and are really famous when it comes to sports news. But at the same time, there's some people who maybe needed that expertise, that training, that shouldn't be quite as popular as they are now espousing opinions.
So do you think overall, like, it has expanded the world of sports journalism and has made it like better, or do you think it's been detrimental to the world of sports journalism because there are those people out there who aren't necessarily as trained in reporting on these things?
It's definitely expanded it, no doubt. Overall, I would say it's a good thing. I would say that the fact that more people can have their opinions heard, that the only people having their opinions heard being these, you know, specific reporters, is a good thing.
Especially the radio guys who are in it for life, you know, they have these opinions.
Yeah, I really think it's been a good thing overall that more people can be heard.
Well, that's good. All right, well, thank you so much for meeting with me.
Absolutely.
It was great to hear your opinions. Journalism 102 has been one of my favorite classes this semester. I honestly went into the class thinking that it was going to be really boring and that I wasn't really going to learn anything new because I have been involved with journalism for the past like 3.5 years, but I can say that was absolutely not the case whatsoever. And I was able to take the skills I learned this year and translate them into the video that you just watched before this clip. And I was able to successfully interview someone about a topic that I am not super familiar on, sports, and be able to find like a way to change this assignment to something that fit my subject a little bit more than just interviewing him on general news. I was also able to use the personal knowledge that I knew coming in and that I learned about like fake news and citizen journalism and the bias that we see in the media, and be able to successfully interview someone based off of that. This class has taught me a lot. Most of all, it taught me how to make the video and how to, you know, sit down and be professional and speak with him, and I really didn't realize how much I moved my hands in video before this, so that's something good to have learned, to keep that in mind in the future. And I also, like, I'm just really, really glad that I had to take this class because, like I mentioned earlier, I came in excuse me, thinking that I was going to know everything and that it was just going to be like kind of like a blowout class, like I would just sit there. But that was like absolutely not the case. Like, this class was always just kept up to date on like what was happening in the media at that time. We always checked like on the news, whether it was following our news source or just Kathy having on the news before the class, which was really nice. And I got to learn about so many other formats that I had never even touched on before, like podcasts. As much as a pain as that was to get that done, and like cut that down and work with that program, we still, like, I know how to do it now, which is really helpful. And then just being able to learn that like we are the watchdogs, and really just like reaffirming what I hope to do when I grow up, I guess, and how I want to get there. And just this class has really just reaffirmed just all the doubts I've had over the semester of, do I really want to do this, do I really want to do this, and I am just forever thankful for that. So yeah, this interview has really given me the experience to kind of sum up everything we learned over the semester, whether it's books we read in the, or whether it's chapters that we read in the book, or just like the different formats. It used audio like the podcast did, and then we also had to conduct the interview and had to kind of work on putting our own voice into it like the blogs. So thank you so much for watching, and yeah.